Welcome back to TRT World. More now on our top story. The U.S. says Turkmen fighters who live in the area where the Russian plane went down have the right to defend themselves. Here's some background information on who the Turkmen are. Turkmen are ethnic Turks. They've lived in Iran, Iraq, and Syria since the 11th century. Now, the Ottoman Empire wanted Turkmen to help secure roads and counter the influence of Arab tribes in the region. There are no reliable figures for the population of Turkmen, but experts say it's between 1.5 to 3.5 million worldwide. It's believed that around 1% of Turkmen were in Syria before the war. The majority of Syrian Turkmen live in Aleppo, Damascus, Homs, Idlib, Latakia, and Tartus. Now, that's also where Russia has concentrated its bombing campaign in support of Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. Well, earlier this week, a local governor said around 1,700 Turkmen fled their homes in Syria to escape regime attacks. Now, some Syrian Turkmen took up arms to fight the regime when the uprisings began in 2011. There are at most 20 brigades of Turkmen fighting Assad and his allies in Syria. Well, Galip Dalay is the research director at Al Sharq Forum. He joins me now for more. Galip, really, how important is the Turkmen minority in Syria to Turkey, and how much does it actually symbolize the rising tensions now between Turkey and Russia?
Well, it is significant in three ways. One of them for obvious reason. Turkmens are seeing Turks living abroad. So the Turkmens, the Turkish public does not regard a major difference between Turks and Turkmens. Turkmens are Turks living abroad. Secondly, so therefore there is the solidarity of kinship. Secondly, the geographic location of Turkmens. Close to Turkish border, close to the areas that Turkey is planning to somehow create some safe zone, but at the same time, it has strategically located place in where both rebel and regime are fighting each other, and it is one of the hot spots of the conflict. So therefore, their location indicates an important spot in which some kind of tilting balance of power on the ground will be decided. Secondly, the Turkish displeasure with Russia has not started with Russia bombing Turkmens. This was basically the climax of the tension. But nevertheless, the Turkish displeasure with Russia has started from the day first when Russia entered the fray in Syria very heavy-handedly on behalf of the Syrian regime and using its firepower exclusively aimed at the Syrian opposition rather than Daesh. Let's not forget, a week after Russia has entered the civil war, the Turkish Prime Minister said out of 57 attacks that Russia has thus far conducted, only 2 aimed at the Daesh. So therefore, there are three factors that contribute into Turkey's stance on Turkmens, on Russian bombing Turkmens now.
Now, we've heard some Turkmen complain that they were never given proper recognition as rebel fighters, those moderate rebel fighters that the international coalition had pledged to support. Do you think they had a point? Should they have been given that international support from before?
Well, they have a point. I mean, let's not forget, the Turkmens from the beginning, most of them, allied themselves with Free Syrian Army. And there was not a big distinction between whether some group of the Free Syrian Army was Turkmen or Arab. So therefore, the umbrella name of Free Syrian Army came to represent the Turkmen. But nevertheless, we have on the other hand, the Kurds being a force on their own. So there is international recognition of the Kurds. There is international recognition of growing international recognition of also Alawite society, the Christian, but we have heard much less of the Turkmens. So yes, they have a point, because if we are going to recognize Syria, not just considering a one society, but rather talking about its different component, the Arabs, Kurds, Christian, Alawites, well then Turkmen has a point, because they are also a component of the Syrian society and the Syrian fabric.
Right, it's a very complicated situation, obviously. But let me just ask you, we'll finish with this. As far as the tensions now between Russia and Turkey, how serious is this situation?
Well, situation is, we should not fluctuate between these two poles. One of them overestimating it, the other one is the underestimating it. It is important. It is something. It is for the first time since 1952, a Russian plane was shot down by a member of NATO. That means the first in 63 years. So in this regard, it is important. But nevertheless, the ties between Turkey and Russia is very significant too as well, on many fronts, on energy, economy, geopolitics, etc., etc. And the two are two major countries in neighborhood, facing each other, not just in Middle East, but in Central Asia, in Black Sea as well too. So I think it is significant, but I think nevertheless, I think the sides will find a way to manage this crisis. We will see a period of a managed tension between the sides.
Okay, Galip, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in.